Got him. Yeah, I'm on the board, Jim. I seen a whitetail. Ah, an eater. An eater.
You gonna flip that little rascal, or do you want him into the whole netting action? I'm getting the net out.
You know what? You can do that. I can flip this one. It's. Hang on. Yeah, I'm seeing some of them on the Mega, and you're working them. First fish is a little fish, huh?
Closed captioning is provided by Smooth Moves, adjustable boat seat suspensions for a smoother ride.
In our part of the world, in the upper Midwest and the Great Lakes states, our two favorite months of the year to fish is the month of June and the month of October. October is trophy time. That's when you're fishing for monsters. The month of June is everything goes. I mean, everything is biting and biting good. The whole month of June. You wake up in the morning and say, oh, I want to go crappie fishing today, or smallmouth, or largemouth, or walleyes, or muskies, whatever. They're all biting. It's a fantastic month. And then what do you do next? Where you go anywhere? You look at the wind. Last couple of years, the wind has been absolutely horrendous. But wind can be good too. We looked at a rare moment the next 2 days, and South Dakota is fishable. We chose to go to South Dakota to do a little walleye fishing. And we heard the bite is pretty good here. And the bite into Dakota is what we're going to talk a little bit about the Dakota fishery. It's a lot different than some of the Midwestern mesotrophic lakes that we fish. But there's some phenomenal fishing in these prairie lakes, and we're on the fishing. All the water that we have spent over the years is on the east side of South Dakota. And there's a whole bunch of great lakes here, great fishing opportunities. And walleyes are one of them. Boy, did she come up. I was way up there, way up there. Maybe we haven't, ooh, look at that. Look at that. Oh. Strikes again to slim minnow. Pretty good one. Pretty good one. A little bit skinny, James, but not that bad. Pretty nice fish.
Wow.
Bigger or same?
Smallmouth.
You got smallmouth on the brain.
No, it's a walleye. This is tremendous. The base of the forage food base in here are these freshwater shrimp. And it feeds the perch, it feeds all the bullheads, it feeds everything up the food chain, and that's why the tremendous growth rates in these fish. The interesting thing is, it's really odd. You don't, well, a 6-pounder is a big one here, but there's oodles and oodles of, of this size fish up to 2 to 3, 4 pounders, but there's a lot of them, but they don't have the tendency they don't have the really top end growth you see in the, like in Minnesota, where we got a lot of Tulabee-based lakes or deep water forage lakes.
Got him. Good eyeball.
Yeah.
Not real good, but not bad.
Healthy one.
I don't know if I can.
There's another one.
With it?
Yes.
You got yours?
Yes. Mark a waypoint. On the way out here, I was actually reading some different things from the USGS, and what it was talking about the water levels in these lakes, and a lot of these lakes are at an all-time high. And it's sort of intriguing. What happens is, and they were talking about the perch and the walleye boom, and what happens when you get that really high water years like we have over the last number of years, but we have a really high water year this year. You have tremendous booms in populations of fish, and like over the next 3 or 4 years from now, all of a sudden these lakes are going to be loaded with giant perch. I mean, all of a sudden these lakes, even these lakes, these little shallow water lakes that are, little swamp lakes, will have, 12, 14-inch perch out there. We've come out here and done a bunch of ice fishing in them, and it's sort of an amazing thing, because these lakes normally do not freeze out for some reason. They don't get that much snow cover, and a lot of them don't see winter coat, even though they're relatively shallow water lakes.
I mean, these are the kind of fish that people come out here for, these big eaters like this.
This segment is brought to you by Big Bite Baits, designed to bring the big bite to your line.
You know, a lot of these Dakota lakes are what we call prairie lakes. There's fish shallow all year long. Many of these lakes aren't, you know, 12 feet deep, 15 feet deep. You know, naturally you have some a little bit deeper, a little more structure in them. But generally speaking, there's shallow water fish all the time. The times that I fished here over the years, there was always shallow water fish in and around the weeds. And they're jig fish, you can catch them, lipless crankbaits and shad wraps at different times. You know, but there's always some shallow water weed fish. And the fish like we just caught a couple of here, that's the bread and butter of why people come to the Dakotas. You know, to pack them in a freezer, and they're perfect eaters. And like Jim said, a 26-incher out of a lot of these lakes is a really good fish. Yeah, you know, that's a real good fish. But boy, you got a lot of fish that go, you know, 18 to 23. Just amazing bodies of water. You know, if you're a walleye fisherman, yeah, you know, and you never came to this area of eastern South Dakota, yeah, you got to give it a try. It's really fun. There's loads of lakes here. We're on one of the bigger lakes, but there's a lot of smaller lakes you can beat wind in. You can fish these lakes a lot of different ways. You know, jigs and spinners and are really a mainstay here, live bait rigging. But the population of fish is staggering when you come here and see it. Really is amazing, a fish per acre.
The interesting thing is, you know, throughout the summer that these fish, that Al was saying, they never really go deep. I mean, even when the water's in this, you know, high 70s, 80 degrees, and you get on these shallow water walleye bites, you can't believe how tough these little runts are. I mean, these guys are tough, you know what I mean? That's a better one. Come here.
These are real nice.
That's a good one there. Come here, buddy. Look at that guy. Look how healthy that animal is. That's a good one there. And look how he just lunched it. You can see he brought a little bit of his home out there. In this particular lake, there's really a lot of big monstrous weed beds, as well as the structure. Man, buddy, boy, that's a little fetsy. You can see what we've been fishing a lot of these primary points offshore right now. The fish are sort of transitioning, coming out of shallow water here. We're in here the second week of June, but look at all the structure on this lake. I mean, it is just like a minefield of underwater structures all the way across this whole region. And when you look across how big it is, I mean, there are literally, I don't even know how many spots out here. And so you could go through it. Al and I are just jumping from point to point to point, fishing wherever the wind is blowing in on each underwater structure we're fishing. You can see right here, the wind is coming from the west and it's blowing right into the tip of this point, and that's where we've been. You can see where a lot of our coordinates are at. They're just not on those positions.
We're fishing two different kinds of baits. Jimmy's throwing a boot tail, big bite boot tail, and I'm throwing a big bite a new bait called a 4-inch slim minnow, and it's a split tail. You might ask yourself the question, when do you throw a split tail versus a boot tail? Usually, when we first start the morning off and we're out on the water, one guy starts with one and one starts with the other. And generally, by the end of the day, and you'll see that they want something snapping a lot faster, and you want it to get a reaction bite. That's where the slim minnow comes in. On that flat aspirin head moon eye jig, that thing it snaps like this. When you see it in the water and it rolls, the flat part of it rolls, where the boot tail grabs water and it goes like this. And it's a slower dropping bait. So this can be fished much faster, has more triggering appeal than the boot tail. But if I had to give you one advice, I'm gonna go back to what I said. You got two people on the water, always start with somebody with a boot tail and somebody throwing a split tail like the new Slim.
So that was on a number 8 shad wrap.
Your style of boat control is really key.
One that was there from the very beginning.
You want to be able to see in the water. The adventure begins.
We are loaded for bear. We got
You know,
bites.
there's so many different ways to fish for walleye. Dependability and efficiency.
Simple, fast, and easy.
The best rods on the planet. Got him, Jim. Pretty nice
Netter?
one. Netter. You know, I got a question for you. Do you think color makes a difference for walleyes? Anybody that knows anything says, well, of course. Of course it does. And we did a lot of work with these new colors. And as a walleye angler, many of you that are, you know, hot colors, really hot colors. You've seen them in spinners, you've seen them in crankbaits. Now we're putting them in jigs. I mean, really colors that have been proven in a hard bait line to catch walleyes. Well, we brought them in and had them brought into the soft bait line. And walleyes, they like colors too, big time.
You know, there's a wide variety of ways to present this bait. You'll notice that we're doing some amount of casting and popping the bait back or slow reeling the retrieve in the case of with the suicide shad here. But you can also fish it just like a live bait rig, and I do that a lot depending on the wind conditions. What I'll do is just take the bait in 8 to 10 foot of water, you throw it out in back of the boat and you slip drift and do controlled drifts down the edge and just sort of feeling the bait is sort of walking it along the bottom. As far as equipment goes, this is a St. Croix Icon snap jig rod. This is 6/8 medium power, extra fast action, and this is actually tailor-made for this presentation technique. You know, so many rods and reels these days are actually designed for a specific presentation. As far as line, I have 10-pound text Suffix 832 10-pound test with a fluorocarbon leader, a Invisalign fluorocarbon leader. I have an FG knot right here, and then I go about 4 feet of 8-pound test fluoro. And that goes right to the bait. But it's really sort of a fine-tuned rod and reel for this technique, no question about that. This is the rod of choice for doing this. You know, what's really important about any type of fishing presentation is actually balanced tackle. And for this, with my rod, I actually have a Daiwa 2000 Regal reel. Now this has a really fine-tuned drag. It's got that real high-pitched click on there. It's because you're using relatively light line, you need a good drag. But what the biggest thing is the size of the reel balances nicely with the rod. Either a 2000 or a 2500 is the right size of reel for this type of presentation.
You know, the wind is blowing like crazy, and I'm slip drifting with James some of these spots. See that? That was fish. That's Mega Live, the end. We're right on the base of those weed lines. You watch it, all of a sudden you'll see a big fish. All of a sudden. We're seeing them, they're suspended from those pieces, and you'll see those bigger marks right at the bottom, and I'm hovering right on them with my trolling motor. The weed line's right here. And I'm following right exactly on the edge of it. And you'll see fish. You watch it, you'll see some swimming up just out of it. And I'm learning a lot to do on how I'm using this for walleyes too. And these are fish in the weeds, so you'll see them swimming out along the edge of the weeds. There's weed walleyes in the Dakotas in these shallow lakes like this all year long. Yeah, this lake has got some deep structure, but you can always come spring, summer, fall, open water and catch weed walleyes. And today we're catching some fish right up on top in 4 feet of water, and then some fish dragging right along the very, very scraping the base of the weeds. I'm watching, I got it on auto on here, going into some pretty heavy wind with my Minn Kota, and I got everything set up on auto. Got him. Good one again. A little bit better than normal. Once you learn how to use that Minn Kota, and you know it, where you got it on constant and you're working big waves like this, where boat control is everything. Yeah, you know, that Minn Kota in this kind of wind, I mean, we've been running them for years, and my confidence and comfort with this trolling motor, I can't say enough about it. We've been with them most of our entire careers. And you get in big weather, bad weather, you travel all over the country. Yeah, you know, to fish, you're in Canada, some very remote places. Yeah, you know, there's no issues with them. They're bulletproof.
You know, a lot of walleye fishing is all about boat control and your ability to, you know, control drift, and we're pulling along the edges of some of these spots, and now Al has turned the boat sideways and he's slipping down. And it's usually what happens, we'll hit a fish and Al hit spot lock, which is, you know, obviously a huge tool for walleye fishing because it all of a sudden just pins you right on the spot where you just caught a fish. And generally, you know, as you saw, we'll catch a number of fish from that given spot. You know, that's one thing about the spot lock feature, what it does, you know, and wind varies, you know what I mean? Right now it's sort of gusty, so it's changing. Sometimes it's blowing, sometimes it's, you know, it'll back off a little bit. But what the trolling motor does is, because it's a GPS-based system, the trolling motor actually has a GPS sensor in there, and it's positioning based on its location. It enables you to really stay on an accurate location, even in really big wind. We use it for in so many different various conditions. It's amazing, not only for walleye fishing, but for any different fishing situation, or a lot of different fishing situations throughout the course of a year.
They like to eat when you're throwing the right thing.
You don't have all bluebird flat calm days.
Just a perfect eating size fish. See, that's what I'm talking about, these Eyewear drags.
We got walleye stuff, we got crappie stuff, we got pike stuff.
This boat is rigged up about as nice,
Easy to use, and it flat out works.
It's a must-have when you're talking about big waves. Well, these trout are so darn tough.
This bait is legendary. Ooh, got him, Jim.
Good
Ooh.
one.
Yeah, it got a little, it feels like you got some shoulders to him. Yeah, nice one, nice one.
Okay.
Definitely a nice one.
Okay. Oh. It's a little
Very
sporty.
nice,
It's a
yeah.
little sporty.
A little better one, yeah.
There you
Go.
There you go.
Hang on, hang on. This is a step up from the other one, James. Whoa, let me give you, there you go. Oh, look at that. Oh, my back is really sore, so every time I catch a fish, I gotta sit down. I guess it goes, nice fish, huh? These are nice chunks. This is bread and butter fishing here, you know, in this part of the world, and in many parts of Minnesota. These are nice fish. Really nice fish by anybody's standards. I mean, if you fish many of Minnesota's and Wisconsin's classic walleye lakes, with the exception of the Great Lakes and the rivers that fish those Great Lakes, you know, fish like this are really, really welcome. You know, where you're catching a lot of fish. Yeah, you know, a lot of these smaller lakes, you know, it's all relative. And there's some lakes just don't, you know, in this part of the world, we said it a couple different times, you know, 26-incher is a big fish, but boy, oh boy, there's a lot of these 18, 19, 20, 21, 22s. Yeah, you know, and they're just plain fun to catch. You know, plain fun to catch. It's all relative, all relative. And when you can set the hook on so many fish, well, it's tough to beat, especially doing jigs. Hey, the other morning when I got up, I got a beep on my phone. I pick it up, look at it, and it says, "Good morning from Apple News." The first images from the James Webb Space Telescope showing the deepest views of the universe ever captured. Then it goes on to read, "The first image from NASA's Webb telescope is our deepest view of the universe. The newly released full-color images highlight a stunning collection of ancient galaxies and heralds in a new age for astronomy." After a million-mile journey into space, NASA's newest flagship observatory, the James Webb Space Telescope, has captured its first suite of full-color images of the universe. As seen through the instrument's sharp infrared eye, that little patch of populated by swirling, glowing, gorgeous galaxies, some of which existed more than 13 billion years ago when the universe was still a toddler. And then it goes on to talk about how important a find like this is. Every time I read something like this, I wonder how people can look at the world around us and look at space, the magnitude of space, and believe that this, all of a sudden, for no rhyme or reason, just popped up. Just a pop-up. No, nothing. Starts with some goo, and it led to the magnitude of space and the world and the earth we live in. Blows my mind that they can't say the word God or created. It's so simple to me. How clear it is. I got to go first of all, as I always do, the book of knowledge. Tells you everything you got to know about anything, and it's in the very, very beginning, the very beginning of the Bible. In Genesis, the first thing it says, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Duh. Is that pretty clear? Pretty simple, like the Word of God always is? Now let's go a little bit further. Let me go down to Romans 1:20. For since the creation of the world, his invisible attributes are clearly seen, being understood by the things that are made, even his eternal power and Godhead, so that they are without excuse. God's word is always so clear, so to the point. It addresses everything, everything. Hey, from all of us here at The Edge, you have a great fishing season. We'll see you on the water.